Hello and welcome. I'm Saeed from StoryPlanet.net. Dive right into the essence of the most captivating books without reading them cover to cover. Whether you're on the go, at the gym, or just relaxing at home, we offer you a unique and enriching listening experience. Today, we are exploring the book, The Conscience of a Conservative, a creation by Barry Goldwater. The Conscience of a Conservative, 1960, is a foundational conservative text by Barry Goldwater that revived the conservative movement by advocating for a smaller government. Goldwater's views on taxation, education, and welfare gained widespread acceptance on the right, leading to the Reagan Revolution in the 1980s. Before we delve into these revelations, it's interesting to note that Barry Morris Goldwater served as a U.S. Senator from Arizona for 5 terms from 1953-1965 and 1969-1987. He was the Republican candidate for president in 1964 and is recognized for inspiring the revival of conservatism in the U.S. Goldwater passed away in 1998. With 7 key ideas to unveil, brace yourself for a deep dive into this captivating book on StoryPlanet.net. To start, a brief introduction to conservatism and its principles. The 1960s in the US marked a time of political and cultural change. Barry Goldwater, a senator from Arizona, published The Conscience of a Conservative in 1960, a manifesto that revitalized the American right. Goldwater believed in core conservative values, voluntary unions, and criticized the welfare state for eroding freedom. His ideas led to a resurgence of conservative influence in the U.S. political landscape by the end of the 1960s. Key idea number 1. Conservatism focuses on the whole man in contrast to liberalism. Conservatives believe in limited government and maximum personal freedom, focusing on the whole man, including economic and spiritual aspects. They argue that fulfilling spiritual needs requires recognizing individual differences and promoting freedom of choice. Conservatives uphold economic and political freedom as essential for human flourishing, while acknowledging the need for social order and certain limitations for peaceful coexistence. Key idea number 2. The United States Constitution upholds limited government, a principle largely ignored by both political parties in the 20th century. The text discusses the concept of limited government as enshrined in the United States Constitution to prevent abuses of power. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining a balance of power between branches of government to safeguard freedom. It also highlights how both political parties in the 20th century disregarded the principle of limited government, leading to the growth of a more intrusive federal state. Key idea number 3, erosion of states' rights undermines liberty. The erosion of states' rights is emphasized, impacting liberty. Grants in aid blur state and federal jurisdictions with a 50-50 budget split. Federal dominance deprives states of decision-making power, violating the Constitution. The Founding Fathers supported local handling of political issues to uphold the interests and autonomy of each state's residents. Key idea number 4. There is no conflict between states' rights and civil rights when they are properly defined. States' rights and civil rights are not necessarily conflicting, as long as they are properly defined. The Constitution sets clear limits on the powers of states when they encroach upon individual rights protected by federal law. Civil rights are rights protected by valid laws and must be compatible with the Constitution. Federal intervention to guarantee mixed-race schools is not a civil right, but desegregating schools was enforced by the federal government following a Supreme Court decision in 1954. The court considered the evolving societal context and made decisions accordingly. Key idea number 5. Trade unions are counterproductive when they try to represent workers who do not desire representation. As America industrialized, businesses grew powerful and workers relied on trade unions to negotiate better conditions. However, unions serving unwilling members undermine their purpose. Unions should focus on representing those who choose collective bargaining freely. Mandatory membership makes unions illegitimate. Right-to-work laws aim to prevent mandatory union membership, making association a civil right. While unions argue it's unfair for non-members to benefit without contributing compelling dues, payment isn't justified. The majority will likely support unions voluntarily if they serve members well. Key idea number 6. Governments do not have unlimited rights to individual earnings. The text highlights the impact of big government on American voters' perspectives on taxation and freedom. It emphasizes the concept of individual liberty and property rights, particularly in terms of income. It argues against excessive taxation as a threat to freedom and advocates for a fair tax policy based on funding legitimate government functions. The text criticizes progressive taxation as unfair and inefficient, promoting an equal percentage tax on all citizens as the fairest approach. Key idea number 7. The welfare state is seen as a form of collectivism that poses a threat to freedom. The text discusses the shift in threats to American freedom from Marxism to welfarism. It touches on how Marxism lost appeal post-World War II and how welfarism emerged as a new form of collectivism. It explains how welfarism can erode personal responsibility and freedom, highlighting how it can seem virtuous but may actually interfere with others' freedom. Additionally, the text explores the concept of welfarism in relation to democracy and individual liberty, emphasizing the negative impact on self-reliance and community bonds. In conclusion, conservatism emphasizes the importance of economic and political freedoms for individuals. In 20th century America, both Republicans and Democrats expanded the federal state, undermining constitutional principles. Trade unions and the welfare state were seen as threats to freedom. The book, The Conservative Mind, by Russell Kirk, delves into the history and ethical basis of conservatism, tracing its development from 18th century philosophers to the 20th century. It offers a closer look at the history of conservative ideas. Thank you for listening to this summary. If you enjoyed this exploration, we invite you to discover other fascinating books on storyplanet.net. Don't wait any longer. A multitude of books, stories, and knowledge await you there. See you soon on storyplanet.net.